Peace to the 12, man. Y'all see the title. The Portuguese Jews were black in the 1400s. Yeah, the Portuguese Jews were black in the 1400s. Y'all see that title. And, this is just me about to touch on something I've already done a video on. But I decided to touch back onto it because I got a whole bunch of new subscribers. And I saw the brother Tazarah post that he got into this discussion with this Edomite. At least I'm assuming he's Edomite. I don't know this guy at all. I never watched his channel one time in my life. And I probably never will. But he says, faithful to God runs from discussing historical sources on his own live. And I clicked on some of it. I didn't want to watch all of it because I got tired of hearing this person's individual's voice. But but basically what I saw that was going on was Tazarah was talking to this guy, and this guy was saying, oh, people used to believe that Jews were black, but it didn't mean they were literally black. It meant this, that, and that, and blah, blah, blah. And he went up there and talked to him. I guess he kicked him off. I don't know what happened. Like I said, I didn't really watch all the video. So if you're watching this, Tazarah, you can say what happened. But nonetheless, I decided, what am I going to do? I'm just going to get the sources. All right, I'm going to get the sources. So we're going to talk about in the Middle Ages of Europe, Jews were often called black and were depicted as such in the artworks. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about how we're also going to show some examples of Portuguese Jews being called black in literature in that time period. And we're also going to talk about examples of black Africans being called and or compared to Portuguese Jews. And then I'll get some scriptures that talk about the black skin of the Israelites. So that'll be the video. So let's get into it. All right, so let's kick it off with 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Prove all things, hold fast to that which is good. And that's what we do. We prove all things. And let me tell you something before I go into this, man. This is for you. This is for my people out here. Don't ever be discouraged. Don't ever be discouraged due to the scoffing of the people who quote unquote debunk us, because they just want to try to control the narrative. But the thing is, they cannot conceal this information because it's already out here. It's public, and most of this came out back in the day, so it's on the internet forum that's free. You don't even have to pay for it. All right, it's public domain because it's past 100 years. So most of these books are so old that you don't even have to pay for it to get this information out there. So no matter what they do, you can't. Don't be discouraged. They're going to try to control the narrative. They're going to try to do their little schemes. They're going to try to explain away why things are. But the information is so potent, there's nothing they can do. Like the scriptures say, what? There is nothing they can do against this truth, only for it. All right? So anyway, I just wanted to get that little PSA out there. Did I use that correctly? PSA. I know it's public service announcement. Anyway, in the Middle Ages of Europe, Jews were often called black and were depicted as such in artwork. So let's get that in a couple books. Let's get this first book by a British historian named Tudor Parfitt. He is a British historian, writer, broadcaster, traveler, and adventurer. He specializes in the study of Jewish communities and Judaism communities around the world, particularly in Africa, Asia, and the Americas, and the development of issues about the construction of race. All right, so this is a historian. He wrote a book called Black Jews in Africa and the Americas. So right there already, he's already talking about black Jews. Black Jews in Africa and the Americas. We're going to go down to here. This is page 4, I guess. Yeah. And it says right here. It says, a long European tradition maintained that the Jews in general were certainly black metaphorically, in the sense that they were diabolical and evil, as well as black literally. And that's what I did catch him in this conversation. Part of what I did hear, he was like, oh, you see the Germans back in the 40s, they used to call them black, but they meant it metaphorically. Yeah, I will say this. There is evidence to say that they were called black metaphorically as a bad thing, but they were also called black literally, which this historian just noted, right? As well as black literally. One Christian critic of the supposedly Jewish Pope, Anacletus II, elected in 1130, hinted that Jews were generally regarded as dark when he noted that the Pope was dark and pale, more like a Jew or an Arab than a Christian. Sir William Brereton, 1604 to 1661, the English parliamentarian soldier and writer, happened to visit a Sephardi synagogue in Amsterdam, where he commented that the Jews were very dark-skinned and lascivious. They were most black and insatiably given on to women. And in his new voyage to Italy, which I'll get that book in this video, In his new voyage to Italy, 1714, Francois Maximilian Mission, the French writer and traveler, confirms that the general supposition was that Jews were black. So he says the general supposition. That means that a lot of people believed that in his time period of 1714, when he noted that all Jews were black, although only Portuguese Jews started off black. Okay? So let's get another one that talks about this phenomenon in medieval Europe, how they were considered black a lot. All right, now they say, oh, it was metaphoric. Yeah. Somebody gonna have to explain to me any time in history where they had a whole group of people and they're like, okay, those guys are black, but they're not really black. It's just a metaphoric black, and all this shit. Anyway, so I'm gonna crush this metaphorical speaking later on in the video, so I'm not even gonna pick at that too much. So let's go to this guy Yaakov Shavit, born 1944. He was a modern Jewish intellectual and cultural historian. He's written about the Afrocentrism movement in the African American community. Now, why are you concerned about Afrocentrism? All right. Anyway, he wrote a book called History in Black: African Americans in Search of an Ancient Past by Yaakov Shavit. And we're going to go to page 182, right here. He says, in medieval literature, a theory prevailed in which the Jews were part of the black race. So this was a whole theory in medieval literature. Or were at least dark-skinned. A number of bizarre examples were brought forth as proof. One was that because Jewish religious law commands that coitus takes place in the dark, Jewish children are born with dark skins. Yeah, that sounds like total madness. The image of the Jew as a dark skin fits in with the image of the southern Mediterranean type. Indeed, the Jew practically became the prototypical Mediterranean, small, black, and hairy all over. Blah, 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 blah. The image of the Semitic Mediterranean Jew as black occupied a significant place in both popular and learned anti-Semitic literature of the 19th century. Some, like Houston Stewart Chamberlain in Foundations of the 19th Century, described the Jews as an admixture of Negro blood with Jewish in the diaspora of Alexandria. So this is multiple different people once again correlating Jew with black. All right. So this makes me laugh whenever you see these, these boneheaded Christians or these skeptics of whatever other degree, whether atheists or whatever, or I don't want to say Afrocentrist, but like a Hotep dude. They're like, oh man, brother, I don't believe that, brother. Or on the Hotep side, they'd be like, that's the white man's book. Right? Well, apparently it isn't, nigga, because for a long ass time, people were conflating Jews with black. And there's another guy who I didn't even include in this video, named Tacitus. This is in during 70 AD or such. Tacitus said that many assumed that the Jews were of an Ethiopian race. I've already included that in other videos. I didn't include it here because we're talking about Portugal and we're talking about Europe. So I didn't include it. But, yeah. So, yeah. The proof is already out there. Like I said, most of these books are older than you or me or your grandpa or your grandma. All right, let's get one more. Abraham Melamed, high education teacher, professor of Jewish philosophy in the University of Haifa in Israel, for a study of Jewish cultural heritage. This is his book, The Image of the Black in Jewish Culture. Abraham Melamed. Right here, page 31. It reads, see if I'm still recording, because my stuff's been messing up lately. Okay. It reads, a strong European tradition dating back to the Middle Ages maintained that Jews were black. See, all the way back to the Middle Ages. Or at least swarthy, and finds sharp expression in modern anti-Semitic literature. Medieval Christian iconography frequently shows the contrast between the black figure of a synagogue and the white one of the church. The distinction was applied to the Jew in contrast to the Christian of Northern Europe. All right, they're talking about, they depicted Satan as black, therefore they also depicted the Jews as such. And, they got their theories, but like I'm telling you, for those that know, it's obvious why they consider black. So anyway, I might go even further into detail on that specific topic at another time. Now let me show you examples of Portuguese Jews being called black in literature of that time period. All right, and by that time period, I'm talking about, as the title suggests, 1400s. So this is a book called The Critical Review or Annuals of Literature by Tobias Smollett. This is volume 57. We're going to go down to here. Page 141. It's hard to read, but I zoomed in. Starts right here. It says, King John II in what? 1492. Same year as Columbus. They tell you what. Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. Well, it says King John II in 1492 expelled, meaning kicked out, all the Jews to the island of St. Thomas. Now, the island of St. Thomas that it's talking about is São Tomé on the coast of the west coast of Africa. It's not talking about the St. Thomas in the Caribbean. All right, I know brothers get this confused sometimes. I had this confused the first time I ever read this, but it's talking about St. Thomas, and it's talking about São Tomé Island in off the coast of West Africa. That's what it's talking about. It's not talking about the Caribbean. So anyway, King John II in 1492 expelled all the Jews to the island of St. Thomas, which had been discovered in 1471, and to other Portuguese settlements on the continent of Africa. And from these banished Jews, the Black Portuguese, as they were called, so the banished Jews were called what? The Black Portuguese. They were called that. And the Jews in Loango, who were despised even by the very Negroes, are descended. So he also mentioned Jews in Loango. Okay? These are African Jews. We'll get into that in a minute. So let's go to this Maximilian Mission. His book, A New Voyage to Italy, Volume 3. We're going to go to page 139. And this is what he has to say. It says, "'Tis also a vulgar error that the Jews are all black, for this is only true of the Portuguese Jews, who marrying always among another begat children like themselves, and consequently the swarthiness of their complexion is entailed upon their whole race." So again, he's saying the Portuguese Jews are what? Black. Okay? Now, what that guy was going to say, or I'm assuming what Tazarah was talking about, what this guy was trying to argue is that, oh, yes, they were called black, but it wasn't literal. They didn't literally have a so-called black complexion. All right? That's what he was trying to argue. Once again, I did not finish it. Dude's voice was annoying me, and I hate when Edomites try to teach me the scriptures. All right, so I tuned out. You know, this is kind of a side note, but when I first got into this truth, man, I have brothers. They would send me videos of like some white pastor or, you know, some whatever talking about, oh yeah, you know, I believe it. And I was like, bro, I don't care what this man say. I don't need his opinion. All right, I don't need his opinion. Only reason I use their opinion in these books is to help prove that we are the children of Israel. All right, because I have many books that's written by other people, but these are the quote unquote credible people according to the brainwashed mind of a lot of people, so I use their references. But in all honesty, I don't give a shit about their opinion. All right, Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26, the curses clearly prove who the Israelites are because we're the only group that's under them. Anyway, here are examples of black Africans being called and or compared to Portuguese Jews. This is the nail in the coffin right here, actually. Conrad Montbrun, French geographer born in 1775. He wrote a book called Universal Geography, or a Description of All the Parts of the World, Volume 4. We go to page 309. It says, "A fact worthy the attention of travelers is that so-called black Jews, according to Ollendorp, the kingdom of Loango contains black Jews." The kingdom of Loango contains what? Black Jews. Now, where's Loango at? Loango, for those of you that don't know, the kingdom of Loango is pre-colonial Africa state during approximately the 16th to 19th century in what is now the western part of the Republic of Congo. So Loango is in Congo, which is in Central Africa. All right, just for those that don't know. So, let's read that again. "A fact worthy the attention of travelers is that, according to Ollendorp, the kingdom of Loango contains black Jews. Scattered throughout the country, they are despised by the Negroes, who do not even deign to eat with them. They are occupied in trade and keep the Sabbath so strictly that they do not even converse on that day. They have a separate burying ground very far from any habitation. The tombs are constructed with masonry and ornamented with Hebrew inscriptions." Okay. Mr. Ehrman, finding it impossible to explain the origin of these Jews, doubts the reality of the facts, so he didn't want to believe it. Bushing, however, Michaelis and Zimmerman do not hesitate to admit their existence. So this is 4 against 1. that believe in these black Jews of Luongo. Bruns considers them to be descendants of the Falashas, or Habish, or Abyssinia, and Springall wishes them to be considered as the descendants of the Portuguese Jews. All right, so he's saying these African black Jews of Luongo are probably the descendants of what? The Portuguese Jews, who having quitted their country are no longer afraid to profess openly the religion of their fathers. 5 leagues to North Luongo, right? So he says, no, these are the Portuguese Jews that were kicked out, and they profess their religion because they don't have to worry about the persecution of the Portuguese anymore. Let's go to another book that speaks on this. The Nautical Magazine and Naval Chronicle for 1870. Okay? And let's read page 529. Let's go down to here. Highlighted portion. It says, Luongo family. The inhabitants of Luongo do not differ materially from those of Gabon and Cape Lopez. It is probable that the Jewish type of character above mentioned forms a larger element of the population here than it does on the Pongo coast, and this it was doubtless which led to the Roman Catholic missionaries who labored here during the 16th and 17th centuries to the conclusion that they had found black Jews in Luongo. So in the 1500s and the 1600s, they found black Jews in the Congo. Okay? Let's go out of here. Barbet states that in the reign of Don John II, we got that earlier. Remember what? King John II, 1492, expelled all the Jews of St. Thomas. This is what he's bringing up. Barbet states that in the reign of Don John II and about the close of the 15th century, large numbers of Jews, so this is the 1400s, large numbers of Jews were expelled from Portugal and taken to the coast of southern Guinea, that the island of St. Thomas. Okay? So he's talking about black Jews in Luongo, and once again, he's talking about this guy, Barbet. He's like, yeah, they're probably the Portuguese Jews that were expelled. Let's get another one that talks about the Portuguese Jews' skin complexion in comparison to Africans. This is a book called Sources of History in the Pentateuch by Samuel Colcord Bartlett. All right. This is the word Pentateuch just means 5 books. All right. The 5 books of the Bible, of the Torah. All right. What? Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. I think I named them all right. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Numbers. Yeah. Anyway. So, Sources of History of Pentateuch by Samuel Colcord Bartlett. Page 118. This is what he has to say. Thus, the black color is found not only in the individuals as the black Jews of Portugal, look, the black color, but in tribes as the Basharis in the Red Sea, whose hair and character are perfectly Semitic. So, check this out. He said the black Jews in Portugal, the black color in the black Jews of Portugal is also found amongst the Bashari tribe. Now, who is the Bashari tribe? This is the Ashwan, Egypt group of the Basharis. Okay? This is the color of those Portuguese Jews because he compared them to the Bashari. He compared the Bashari to the black Jews of Portugal in terms of black color. This color. Okay? It's no way around it, man. Like, it's undeniable. I had to just go and make this video because, like I said, I'm not going to let these guys try to control the narrative. All right? The truth is out there. You devils can't lie to us anymore. It's just impossible. It's impossible to anyone who does any type of research. And I do these videos to prove our identity and also for you brothers to take notes and show to other people to prove our identity. If they don't agree with you when you tell them that you believe that you're an Israelite, this is how you do it. You go step by step. You go to these different books and page numbers, man. Like I said, most of these books that I've listed are free on the internet through public domain. You just got to look it up. All right, on a PDF file. Some of them cost money, like the ones I cut, the 1900 historians. But anyway, this is what it is. This is another guy, John O. Gilby. Guy born in 1600. He was... What is he? Does it say what it is? He was a translator, publisher, cartographer. Cartographer means map maker. Anyway. He wrote a book called America Being the Latest and Most Accurate Description of the New World. It's a long title. We're going to go to page, 574. Go down here. It reads, the Portuguese that dwelt on the island informed the Netherlanders that few lived about 50 years there. Yet notwithstanding the great gain tempted them to tarry, several of them having 200 or 300 Negroes that worked in the sugar mills, that John III, King of Portugal, sent a colony thither about 200 years before. Right? So these are Negroes. These are the black Portuguese Jews that were sent by the king to Portugal, whom, though the unwholesome air destroyed, yet the place was to be left desolate for the new inhabitants, who settled in Guinea, next in Angola, and lastly in the island of St. Thomas, that so they might be better used to the air, that the said king sold all those Jews for slaves that refused to embrace the Roman religion. All right, and all you got to do is look up St. Thomas, Africa slave trade, and they had sugar mills. All right, so we're learning that those people that were the slaves there were black Jews. All right, and caused their children to be baptized, coming thither, most of the present inhabitants were descended. Yeah, they tried to force fake white Jesus Christianity onto these people. Okay, which is nothing new. They always do that. Muslims did it too. I've done videos on that. Andrew Bryce, English printer and writer, 1690. His book, The Grand Gazetteer of Topographic Dictionary, etc. Page 622. He's talking about Negro land, this Portuguese factory that makes. Check this out. He says the village contains near 4,000 inhabitants, among whom not above 10 or 12 families of whites. The rest are all tawny or black, though they style themselves true Portuguese. So you have these tawny and black people. I mean, you have these black and brown people who are like, no, we're the true Portuguese. Why? Because they're descendants of those Portuguese Jews that I'm talking about, man. All right, so I'm going to end this with just a couple of scriptures. You know, this ain't going to be too long of a video. I just wanted to clear up some things to prove that, no, they were calling the Portuguese Jews black literally and not no damn metaphorically. I just proved it, all right? I proved it through several sources, but I'm going to end this with 3 different Bible verses that speak on the black skin of some Israelites. Go to Songs of Solomon, chapter 1 and 5, staple that I use all the time. I am black, but comely, O you daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. This person's saying they're black. As the tents of Kedar, this is how black the tents of Kedar are. Let's get other versions of this. I am black but comely, I am dark but lovely, I am black and beautiful, I am black but lovely, black but lovely, black but lovely. Let's get another scripture. Songs of Solomon 1 and 6. Look not upon me, because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyards. My own vineyard have I not kept. So the sun blackened them, just like it does so-called black people. These are black people with tan lines, okay? As you can see, this is what the sun darkens us. Other versions. I am darkened by the sun. The sun has darkened my skin. The sun has looked upon me. I am black, right? Let's get one more. Lamentations 5 and 10. Our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine. The famine is black in our skin as though baked in an oven. Our skin is black like an oven because of the burning heat of a famine. All right, so the heat, meaning the sun, had blackened their skin. This is a picture of a woman in the winter. This is a picture of her in the summer. This is the same woman. All right, she was showing a picture of before and after winter to summertime. So, yeah. Don't matter what the hell this guy, faithful guy, had to say. Debunked. Shout out Tazarah. And that's the video. The Portuguese Jews were black in the 1400s. So, man, with that, I want to say peace to the 12. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father, Most High Yahawah. The name is only God's Son, yahawashi. Yahawah is the name of the Heavenly Father, who the world commonly calls God. Yahawashi is the Savior of the nation of Israel, the world commonly calls Jesus Christ. I want to say shalom, which means peace. To you people listening and learning, you brothers whose work, truth, sincerity, and to you elders as we're doing this thing before me, man. I'm getting out of here. Gone. Peace.